I am making today sort of a version of a moussaka. So moussaka is originally a Greek food, but so a few things. First off, it usually uses like a bechamel sauce, which is a mix of milk and flour and butter and, not super healthy. I'm sure it's really delicious, but not the best, not the healthiest thing to do. And you combine that with meat. I'm also kosher, so I can't cook meat and milk together. So I'm just doing kind of a variation of a moussaka, but I'm just going to be using some ground beef and some eggplant. So the first thing I did is I cut my eggplant into these rounds. I salted it for about 20 minutes to drain out the water and take out some of that bitterness. And then I browned my meat. And so we're using the same flavor profile that a regular moussaka would use. So even though this is going to be a little bit different, and they call this a keto or a paleo moussaka, but it's really delicious. I actually made this a lot as sometimes for dinner because I just love eggplant and I love ground beef. So what I did is I browned the ground beef. I put it back in the pan because I made it a little while ago and I want to make it a little bit more wet with some tomato sauce. You can use broth. But what I added to it is I added some tomato paste, some paprika, some dried basil, dried oregano, and cinnamon. The cinnamon is really key, and it really just smells so delicious. It is such a great thing to kind of incorporate all those flavors together. And then I added some tomato sauce, but I'm going to add a little bit more, and I'm going to let it just cook together just because I want to make this a little bit more wet, go on top of our eggplant slices. And by the way, you can use ground chicken for this, ground turkey for this. You can use, an imitation meat if you want. So we want to make this a little bit more wet. And then what you can do while you're cooking your meat is you can cover the eggplant and put it in the oven just so that it gets a little bit softer. But I think I, for the most part, cut the eggplant thin enough that it still will cook nicely. So when you're putting it when you are going to put it in the oven, just keep in mind that the meat's already going to be cooked. You're just kind of making sure that the flavors all kind of come together. So this looks perfect. It's like it's not as dry anymore. It's more wet. So all you're going to do is you're going to spoon it. It's not going to be so pretty right now on top. When you're making a traditional meat sauce, typically we don't care that we have bigger chunks, right? It's nice to have our bigger chunks. We do want to make sure that the meat gets pretty diced up just because it's going to look a little bit nicer. We want it to be a little bit more fine. And so for taste purposes, it doesn't really matter. Just for aesthetic purposes, we want it to be a little bit. I'm going to show it to you guys. Spoon this up. There. I'm going to do it a little quicker. And then we do that. I'm almost finished with my meat. And by the way, this is 1 pound of ground beef, and I made one before. So you don't need a lot. You really don't need a lot at all. You just pretty much finish that up. There's a little bit left. You can also do this like an eggplant parmesan, where you can layer it in a pan and put it kind of all together like that. And you can put like a mashed potato on top. That's also a really great way to do this. Now I'm going to stick this in the oven, put it in at like 400 degrees for like 15 minutes. It doesn't really need more than that. I will show you what I had from before. It got a little bit burnt because I left it in the oven for a few minutes too long, but it's really delicious. The flavors go really nicely. The cinnamon adds such a good flavor to the meat mixture. It goes really well with the eggplant. The eggplant got super soft, and it's just super delicious. You can add some more sauce on top. You can add cheese on top if that's what you want. Add some more color, add some more green if you want to make it look a little nicer. And that's really it.